Hello and welcome to episode 381 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I am one of the co-founders here at ETR, and we are coming off of a getting it in bad kind of week. Yes, that's right. Last Saturday, I did something I honestly never do, ever. I knowingly got my money in bad. Now, let me be clear here. Practically speaking, I've gotten my money in bad plenty of times. And I should add, I'm not talking about results. I hope anyone who listens to this understands that short term results are pretty meaningless. When I say getting it in bad, I mean my EV in the spot was actually negative. And so what I'm trying to say is that there's certainly been a ton of times in my life, peer to peer gambling over the last 20 years or whatever, where I thought I was plus EV, but in actuality, I wasn't. Certain lineups in poker games, spots in DFS, tennis bets, fucking 6, 12, 18, 24 against Bales. I mean, all kinds of things I've gotten in bad without knowing it. But the difference is I never did it knowingly. But you know what, man? To quote the great Mike McD, the legend himself, Mike McD, if you're too careful, your whole life can become a fucking grind. And so, if you listen to the last solo pod, episode 374, you have some idea of why I wanted to play the 25K buy-in at the World Series of Poker. Like, I've played a mind-numbing amount of cash over the last 20 years. I've played the 10K main a handful of times. I've played probably 20 to 40 tournaments with buy-ins between 1K and 3K. I was just looking for a different experience. And honestly, I don't even think I was that big of an underdog. Maybe that's just my ego talking. But, the people who were saying that I'm point 0.6 in that event, I mean, they're just insane in my opinion. I'd buy myself at 6 cents on the dollar all day. Honestly, I'd probably buy myself at 8 cents on the dollar. I think something like 0.85 to 0.9 is probably right. In other words, for every dollar that I put in, I'm losing roughly 10 to 15 cents in the long run. I'd say that after playing the tournament, two things weren't great for me. First, my style is pretty outdated. When I was playing a lot, it was just you won with relentless aggression. They check, I bet. I see bet like 90%. They 3-bet, I 4-bet. Just try to run people over. And honestly, that obviously wasn't a sustainable strategy. And it probably was never a winning strategy against a field as solid as the one in the 25K. But really, I mean, the game has changed so much. The solver gives you an incredible amount of checks. So the game just plays so different. And I certainly didn't have a lot of experience there. I think the bigger disadvantage, though, was very clearly playing short. I mean, I've played so much cash, 300 big blinds or deeper in live cash. And in this, we started with 150 big blinds, and very quickly, everyone was around 50. And those spots are so easy to study. It's very clear what you should be doing with 2 8s under the gun on 17 big blinds or whatever. I obviously hadn't been studying that, So while people say I'd be at a bigger disadvantage deeper, I actually disagree there. I think playing short is far more technical, and I was really far behind there. So, anyways, this isn't a poker podcast. It's not a poker podcast. I've already gone too far into the weeds. I'm sure no one cares. Oh, I should say though, I know there's probably some poker fanboys out there who want to know who I played with. I got moved to 3 different tables, all in the first like 6 hours or so of the tournament. Just randomly you high card to move seats a lot in these tournaments. So I played with a ton of different people. I would say I was most impressed by the way Alex Foxon played. I thought Ben Lamb played really well too. Obviously, Joe McKeon, I've known Joe forever from Philly and AC, former main event champ. He plays very well. For roughly 45 minutes, I was on Daniel Negreanu's direct left. I really wanted to go for it against him and hope to get some publicity for ETR through it. But I think he only opened one hand the entire 45 minutes that I was sitting next to him. Oh, also at that table was Freddie Deeb, and he was telling bad beat stories and other nonsense. It was so brutal. At one point, I had to cover my ears. But anyways, I'm still glad I played, even though I busted late on day one. It was only a 3-day event. And honestly, I'm glad I made the trip. I really do love being in Vegas by myself. I can't really explain why. It just feels like home. Like, I love being hot. I went to the gym. I went to the pool. I ate really well. I got in some incredible cash games. I just felt really at peace and so relaxed. Oh, one more story. The thing about Vegas is you get some truly, truly sick fucks from all over the world. These games at Bellagio, the cash games at Bellagio, the higher stake stuff is just, I mean, it's just overrun with dudes from France and Spain and Austria, and honestly, the tournaments too. But, those are obviously professionals. I prefer the sick fucks from America. So I'm playing at Aria on Sunday, and this stone cold slob sits down, like fat, unshaven, clothes never been washed, and his voice is all weird too. And at one point, he says to me, he's like, "Yeah, I have throat cancer." So of course, I say, "Oh man, that's so brutal. I hate to hear it, brother." And he says, "Yeah, it's so weird. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do any of that. The doctor told me I got throat cancer from eating pussy." So of course, I'm like dying. I'm like on the floor laughing, and this dude has just a stone cold straight face, and he says, "I'm not joking." He's like, "Don't eat pussy, man." And you don't find these people anymore at Borgata or Parks or wherever. It's all local grinders. But Vegas will always have the sick pups, man. It really is so great. All right, I want to get to listener questions, but before I do, I have to remind everyone this very professional program is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have blessed us with an outrageous $10 million best ball tournament on a $25 buy-in. If you have our Draft Kit Pro or you buy our Draft Kit Pro, it's $49.99. You will get $10 in your Underdog account automatically by the end of June. Inside Draft Kit Pro, of course, you'll find our rankings for Underdog, which I got to say, man, we're just grinding our cocks off on. We have so many incredibly sharp people debating our inputs, our rankings, our strategies, how that should look in the final product. We're always discussing the news that comes out and whether we should be moving guys. So check it out. The Draft Kit Pro really is an incredible, good deal. I know I'm biased, but I would never lie to you. All right. Enough is enough. Let's get to everyone's favorite portion of the program, the listener questions. Question 1 from DJ Chong Wizard. He says, "Have you had time to investigate the new Bible narrative in Denver? We need to know who is praying with Russ." Good question. Good question, DJ Chong Wizard. And great name too. Shout out to you. So yes, this is important. We know that DK Metcalf really struggled for target share with Russ, particularly after DK Metcalf's now infamous foursome incident. Meanwhile, Russ had incredible chemistry and love and target share for the far less physically gifted Tyler Lockett. Lockett, of course, extremely religious dude, frequenting Bible study with Russ, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Russ is here in Denver, and the answer to DJ Chong Wizard's question is very, very clear. Cortland Sutton is your man. Our R&D team found a YouTube video. I'll try to link it in the show notes if my boomer self can figure it out. But on this YouTube video, it's basically 90 seconds of Cortland Sutton answering some questions about his faith and what's important to him. It turns out that on Sutton's wristbands that he wears while he plays, he wrote two things: Corinthians 15:10 and Psalm 27:1. And he expands on that in this YouTube video. I mean, this guy, my God, he is at least on Tyler Lockett's biblical level, if not above it. So right now we have Sutton around 40th overall in our underdog rankings. We're going to have to take a close look at that. Question 2 from Den says, "The day you won 250K and claimed your King GPP Bro card, you were less than half a point from $1 million. Do you consider this a bad beat and still think about it, or are you numb and used to it from your years of gambling experience?" No, not used to it, man. I've never won that much on a single day ever in my life before, not even close. So yes, I still think about being half a point away from 750K more. I'll never forget it. Now, as for whether it was a bad beat, well, the answer is no, not a bad beat, just didn't score enough points. And even if it was a bad beat, even if something weird happened in the game, I really don't think that it would faze me. That's the kind of stuff that doing this for so long makes you immune to. Over the long run, I'm going to get lucky and unlucky at the same rate as everyone else. Everyone's going to get aces the same amount of times over a 1 million hand sample. If I'm X% better than the field in DFS, then over the long run, that win rate will play out. But what you could say is that getting lucky in the biggest spots makes a huge difference. And that I would agree with. Let's say you're at the final table of the WSOP main and you lose aces versus ace king all in preflop. Yeah, that happens, but it doesn't always happen when there's $8 million of equity on the line. So yeah, in that sense, if Burrow hits Jamar Chase for one more completion on the final drive the Bengals had that week, I win 750K more. If I needed that in cash, the swing is a fraction. So yeah, but anyways, for more on that and how I think about all of that with the score and missing out on the million by a half point, you can go back and listen to the solo pod I did right after that week. I believe it's episode 316. I explained a lot more about my feelings on all of it, so hope you'll check it out. Question 3 from Andy B. He says, is sex different post snip? Yeah, Andy, of course, is referring to the vasectomy. It's been almost 2.5 months or so, 3 months or so since my vasectomy. Is sex different? Yeah, it's so hard to say. I'm so in my head with all this shit. Like, even if I feel a slightly weird feeling, or I think I'm only at 3.88 inches instead of 3.9. My first immediate thought is, God, fuck me. I can't believe I did that fucking vasectomy. But I don't know if that's right. And I'll say that sometimes I feel like a stretching sensation, but then I remember that, well, I always felt that. So I think, I don't even know. But like I said, I'm roughly 3 months out now. I actually still need to jerk in a cup so that I can get my sperm tested for confirmation, which is a whole other issue, which is ridiculous. But at this point, yeah, I'm glad I did it. It wasn't overly painful at all. I think I'm functioning at my normal C- / D+ level. Seems like it was the right call. Next one comes from Connor. He says, if you have a personal favorite rant from past solo pods, what is it? Will Fuller Peds, NFT Bros, fan Twitter, bitching about bad beats, etc. So many good ones since I've started listening. Yeah, thanks, Connor. Really appreciate it, man. I do love doing the rants. But I really don't go into this stuff thinking they're rants, It's just that the podcast format gives me more space to fully explain how I think about this stuff. As for my favorite one, I really don't remember them all, so I'll just pick out of the ones that you listed. It's definitely not the fan Twitter one. There was a lot of backlash. I mean, people really did not like that take about fans. And people made some good points to me about that one. So I can accept that maybe, possibly I'm wrong with the fan Twitter and fan stuff, although I doubt it. The bad beat one is just such low hanging fruit. No real winning gambler ever bitches about bad beats. The Will Fuller one was probably the most painful. I still can't believe that dude actually got caught using PEDs. Like, truly unreal. I mean, getting busted for PEDs in the NFL is like getting busted for doing Molly at a fish show. I mean, how is it even possible to get caught when literally everyone is doing it? As for the NFT one, I mean, maybe I'm too cynical. Maybe I'm an old hard ass. But in my experience, in almost every situation in life, it comes down to sex and or money, period. That's it. So yeah, looking back, I really did love that rant about the NFT bros. I recently retweeted a clip of it. You can find it on my Twitter, probably if you click the media tab and scroll down. But all these NFT bros saying they love the art. Oh, the art. Have you seen the art? Oh, the community. The community is just, it's just so good. I just couldn't take it. I really couldn't. It was so obvious that once the bear market hit, no one would give a flying fuck about the art or the community because numbers stopped going up. And some of this stuff will go up again. It'll get popular again because, it's just people are into it because they're trying to make money. Obviously, I just couldn't believe that was a complicated one or a controversial take at all. But yeah, that was probably my favorite of the ones that you listed. All right. Question 5, second to last question we're going to do today comes from Martin. He says, you touched on this in a recent pod, but in more detail. what kind of off-season award gambling profiles do you build? Can you give an example from previous season? Where are you trying to hedge? And are there specific awards you like to attack the most? Yeah, futures portfolios are awesome and can be extremely profitable without a ton of risk if done right. I want to be clear though, we're never hedging, or at least we're trying never to. The goal is to focus on a specific market, odds to win MVP, coach of the year, NFC champ, whatever, and get in as many plus EV bets in that market as possible, starting in May and going all the way through December. Ideally, we never take a negative EV bet in that market. And because the markets are so wide here, for example, you can find offensive player of the year at a guy at 10-1 on some books, but 30-1 in others. You can get some really incredible prices, which effectively eliminate juice. So, for example, like so far this year, I have Dan Campbell, coach of the year, 60-1. That's 20-1 now. I'll look to keep attacking that market when I see good prices. For offensive rookie of the year, I have David Bell, 100-1. I have Jalen Tolbert, 50-1 so far. A lot of the long shot stuff in other markets too. I'll look for spots to get a good number on some shorter guys too, some shorter price guys too, depending on how the season and news and markets are going. And, Ryan Reynolds does a great job for us tracking all this stuff, shopping for lines, looking ahead at when prices are going to dip. But the point is that, in other words, hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have almost everyone in contention for the award at a really, really good price. Obviously, only one of them can win. So we're not printing off like massive ROI. But if you get good at this and you have a ton of outs, 10 to 20% ROI, I think is realistic. But just understand, we're tying up a lot of money for a long period of time here. And there's obviously opportunity cost in that, I mean, with rates going up, I mean, you can buy a 1-year CD right now and get, 2.2% or so on a 1-year CD. And I'm sure that number is going to keep rising as rates keep going up. But, that's not as fun as building a futures portfolio. And I'm all about fun. All right. Last question we're going to do today comes from Preston. He says, I need some help interpreting a dream. It's a recurring dream where I find myself in the main event, cold 4 betting Adam Levitan, who had 3-bet Phil Hellmuth. It gets through. I show 6-9 off because sex. Is this a wet dream? What does it mean? Some say dreams come true, but I'm not so sure. Yeah, my God. That's an outrageous dream. But I got to say, your instincts seem to be on, Preston. I mean, seems like a good spot to light 4-bet. I mean, clearly, Hellmuth plays so nitty. I'd be 3-betting him light all day. And then you showing up with a cold 4. I mean, I give people a ton of credit for big hands when they cold 4. So, yeah, sounds like you're on it. I will say, these things that come to you in dreams, maybe deep down, that it's right, but you're too scared to execute it in real life. And not just with poker. I mean, who cares about that? But like, a few nights ago, I had a dream where Denzel Washington was having a menage a trois of sorts with 2 young women. And then I woke up and I was like, fuck, man, like, why can't I execute that in real life? Be a man for once. So, yeah, new goal, Preston. If we dream it, we do it. Period. No excuses. Play like a champion. All right. That is going to do it for this edition of the Solo Pod. Appreciate you all tuning in. We'll be back later this week for an interview with Jeff Benson. He is director of sportsbook for Circus Sports. And I have a lot of, I think, interesting things going on in the sports betting world that I think he will have interesting takes on. So stay tuned for that later this week. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on iTunes, anywhere else, please hit subscribe. It is indeed free. And 3 Donkeys are almost back. Me, Peter, and Bales fixing it up, talking about gambling. We're going to record episode 1 of that on, I think, Wednesday. 4. Mr. Luke. 4. Jerry. I'm Adam. Good luck, everybody.